All right, welcome to this episode of Market Shares. I'm your host, Tony Blodgett, and back for round two, we have Amit Baruch. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Tony. Appreciate you having me back here for another round.
Yeah, well, we don't usually let people on here more than once. No, I'm just
Check is in
kidding.
the mail. It's okay. It's going to be all right. But I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you again.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure.
Yes, no, I love speaking with you as well. You're a very interesting mortgage professional. You have a unique background, and we're going to get into some of that stuff. But, you know, before we do, I'd like to do a gut check on what you're seeing in the market right now. Like, let's get like a from the streets loan officer perspective. You know, it's January, 1st of February coming up. So what are you seeing in the market? Does it feel different in 2023 than it did in 2022?
Well, it feels different now than it did a week ago.
Okay.
Even. I mean, things are starting to warm up. Everybody I'm talking to, whether they're my referral partners, whether they're listing brokers, people I follow on Facebook who are posting their open houses, everyone's talking about the buyers are coming back. And we've been cautioning people or advising people that your time as a buyer with power in this market is really limited, especially in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
We have very little inventory. We got a ton of demand that's now hibernating and starting to wake up from that hibernation. So just like the bears, they're starting to go around looking for food, looking for things. Same thing with the buyers. They're coming to open houses. They're starting to write offers. They're starting to poke around and see what's going on. And everybody can feel that. We can sense that the market is shifting. And when they come back in full force, all of the negotiating power that the buyers once had, although it was short-lived, it's going to evaporate altogether. It's just gone.
So what do you think is causing this? Is it just because it's the new year and people are decided to get out of hibernation? Do you think it's, you know, the rates? Do you think it's inflation coming down? Combination of all those? Like, what's your sense on why? Because I'll be honest with you, we normally don't see things pick up until like after the Super Bowl, right? Like, what, mid-February? I always would say like President's Day is my favorite holiday because it's when the market turns in the mortgage business. And so, but this is early, it feels like. So what do you think? What's driving it?
I think everything you mentioned is a big part of that. But I also think that it takes time for people to accept what we call the new normal, whatever that looks like. And the real estate world was shocked when we hit mortgage rates hit 7% a few months ago. I don't think they were prepared for that. And I don't think they had a way of communicating that to their buyers or their sellers. And so everybody just shut down.
Yeah.
And now rates are starting to come down a little bit. Inflation's starting to get contained a little bit. Gas prices are not at $6 a gallon for your super unleaded and whatnot. People are starting to get used to this math. And the demand is still there. The whatever's driving that demand, that didn't go away. They just put pause on it for a moment or two. But they're realizing now that, hey, when this does perk back up, we're not going to get the opportunities that we had a month ago to negotiate. So they're starting to come out. I think their brokers are starting to really push on that as well because they know that in short order, this is going to go away.
Yeah. I totally agree. You know, one thing, I mentioned it in a podcast a month or two ago. I had heard on another YouTube channel that there was this fear, this concern of institutional investors, the large hedge funds that have been purchasing homes, over the last couple of years. And in many markets, I mean, in mass droves. I mean, I've heard of whole neighborhoods being purchased by institutional investors. And so I had heard that they may start releasing some of their inventory, which could help fuel, home prices dropping. But recently, I was reading articles that I think it's Chase has said that they're going to invest $4 billion in residential homes. I mean, I'm hearing that institutional investors are in fact purchasing, not selling inventory. So have you heard any of this? I mean,
I have. I read as well on the same sort of blogs and the same sort of things. And it's interesting because all real estate is local, and yet we're reading on a national level and things like that. There are neighborhoods in Florida and in Georgia and in Texas that are just owned by institutional investors that bought the entire single-family property out there. And they've got rental after rental after rental. I don't think we have that in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, not as much.
I don't see that as much, but I do see that this is still a very good investment for these institutions, and they are still buying. And I don't see prices coming down. In fact, the last loan I locked in, which was this morning, we went under contract yesterday. The buyer escalated above asking price.
Oh.
Asking price was $825. There were 6 offers. My buyer escalated to $855. He waived his financing contingency, waived his inspection. We're closing in 14, 15 calendar days. Like, this is the old normal, not the new normal. We're going back to crazy times. And that's just a one-off story, but I don't expect to see prices coming down if we're looking at escalations and we're looking at multiple offers.
Yeah, it's first I've heard, this week is the first I've heard of multiple offers. I mean, I've had a number of people share that similar story. I'm like, man, we were just doing episodes about leveraging money from the seller to help pay for your closing costs or buy down or whatever. And we may be getting back into a market sooner than we think with bidding wars.
It's uncanny. You know, they say change is a constant. And I was one of those loan officers who a week before we had a buyer who negotiated $20,000 in closing cost credits. And a week later, now we're $35,000 above asking price on a different deal. These are similar price point homes. And so I don't know what to make of it, but I think things are changing.
Well, we're gonna have to watch it closely, and we'll talk about it in future episodes because I'm very interested to get the feeling of the market. I really feel like the market is something that it's kind of palpable. You can feel it, like what's going on. And, when sentiment changes, we know there's not enough inventory. There's no question about that. So, when sentiment changes, it's going to be interesting to see how this market takes off. I do think that, and all projections are to see a slight decrease in values for 2023. But as I've mentioned, it's really hard to measure that. I mean, even if you're looking at the average price of homes that sell, there's so many factors, right? I mean, does that mean less of the higher end homes? I mean, are we seeing price compression in the higher end and not as much in the low end? So there's a lot of factors that play into it. But I think you're right. I mean, we're feeling here as we come towards the end of January that the market feels like it's already turned a bit. Yeah,
it sure does. And we're seeing more offers. We're seeing more buyers. I'm taking more calls, getting a lot more leads. And people are just saying, hey, whatever it is, it's going to be, but I still need a place to live.
Yep.
My kids are getting bigger. We've got another one on the way. This house is no longer going to be compatible with our needs. And the rates are the rates. The costs are the costs. We'll refinance. And that's the other thing we're talking about is there are signs that show that the market is going to change. Interest rates are going to come down as inflation cools. And people are saying, hey, let me buy it now and refinance it in a year or 8 months or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, that's the benefit of a mortgage over renting, right? You can refinance your mortgage. You can't refinance your rent. But rents will be interesting too. I mean, I hear this is another area where I'm getting mixed messages from the market. Some people say that rents, are coming down a little bit, and then I hear in other areas and other people's feedback is that rents are staying strong and going up. So I don't know what to make of rents, but. And maybe it's just dependent on the market, local market.
Yeah, I'm with you on that because it is local, to be sure. But on the one hand, we're talking about the economic indicators, CPI, Consumer Price Index, and shelter costs that are still high on that scale, and that's kind of pushing up the year-over-year inflation rates. And so they're saying that those are going to come down. And on the other hand, we see institutional investors buying all these single-family homes. They're no dummies. They're not doing it to lose money.
That's right.
So I'm curious which one of these is actually going to be, like, where do we meet in the middle?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting the next few months. I think it's going to be more important than ever that we really know what's going on in the market and keep an eye on these trends. I think our borrowers, our the consumer out there is looking, especially those that are on the fence, they're looking for us to be educated on these things. And look, some things are in flux right now, and we just have to be honest about that. But we can watch these trends, week over week, month over month, and really try to have our finger on the pulse of what's going on, and then share that information with the general public, like we're doing here on a podcast like this, or with your individual clients. When you meet with them about what you're seeing in real time, in real life, because I think that although that's anecdotal, it still is a really good feel for what's going on the street today.
I agree. And there's that old saying that we learn by telling stories. So anecdotal information, I'd rather tell stories than give somebody a chart or, a bunch of statistics and let them comb through that. They don't know what to make of it. But when they hear about multiple offers and escalation clauses and things of that nature, they start to get a sense, because this is what we do day in, day out.
Yeah.
So we are kind of that conduit of information, and that's what our clients are counting on.
Yeah. Well, I want to shift gears here. I promised this year to talk about more tactical ideas and strategies that people can use in their business today. And one of the things that you brought up to me on another call was how you're utilizing our cash buyer program. And look, New American has a really cool cash buyer program. We're not the only cash buyer program out there. And I'm not going to spend this episode talking specifically about our buyer accepted program, but it does have some uniqueness to it. And why don't you share with us, if you would, how you're using the cash buyer program, buyer accepted, with your listing agents and with your clients in real world, and how that's helping. Because you got a couple of these going right now. You got a couple more in the works. And I think I've heard you talk about it more than some others as far as, look, this is a real strategy that for a pretty good segment of people, this solves a problem for them with having to make a contingent offer. So let's talk about that strategy really quick and share with us what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Sure thing. It's a unique program, and I know others offer it or some variation of that. But going back a couple of years, I remember getting calls from people asking, "Can I do a bridge loan?" Mm-hmm. They wanted to buy the new home before selling the current one.
Right.
And that's kind of how people are wired. We want our cake, but we want to eat it too.
Yeah.
I want to move only once. I don't want to have to sell, and I need the down payment money though, or I can't qualify with the mortgage payment on the new home, the old home, my debt to income ratio is too high, so on and so forth. And when I moved to New American Funding earlier this year, last year actually, I learned about buyer accepted, and it occurred to me that in the underwriting, we are not counting the departing resident's mortgage against their debt to income ratio.
Right.
And all of a sudden, kind of the clouds parted, and I said, well, why don't we use this as a bridge loan? Because that's kind of exactly what it is. It doesn't read that way, and we don't market it that way. So I started calling up real estate brokers I've been trying to work with for months, if not years, and they always told me the same thing: hey, I do a lot of listings. I said, great. Next time you have somebody offer you a contingent offer on one of your listings, why don't you call me up and let's see if we can turn that into an all-cash buyer for you. And that's when it started to turn the conversation, and it has worked fabulously. It doesn't work for everybody. There's no one-size-fits-all solution,
right.
But for the people that need that. So we have clients that went into contract just a few days ago. They have a home to sell up in Lake Stevens. They weren't ready. They've got 3 kids and 4 animals, and they are not ready. Their house has some repairs, all the stuff that people live in,
sure.
it, right? But suddenly they found a home that they fell in love with, and they needed a way to get there. And all of a sudden, the buyer accepted program became a very viable option for them. So we got them pre-approved through underwriting. We got their property approved through buyer accepted. They submitted an offer. They started negotiating back and forth with the sellers. They were asking for seller credits, so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, another offer comes in. 20% down, conventional financing, no contingencies. The buyer's agent came back and said, hey, look, with buyer accepted, you guys, the sellers, are going to be closing on their transaction January 27th. You're going to have cash money in the next 2 weeks. You should take this deal. You should be happy that you've got this deal. Let's sign it up right now and move on down the road, which is what they did. So our buyers have to get their home ready for market in a short period of time, but they would never have this opportunity if it not for the buyer accepted program.
Right. So let's unpack that just a little bit. So what happens in reality is the reason they don't qualify with their underlying mortgage is because technically they're not buying the home at the time that they close on the BAP transaction. BAP is buying the home all cash, right?
Correct.
Okay, so
Correct.
Cash buyer, BAP now owns the home. They do a rent back, but they're pre-approved.
Right.
They still have to sell their home.
Correct.
But they didn't have to go contingent in order to get BAP to buy that one. They just have now a window where they need to price their home, get it ready for sale, get it sold, and then do the takeout loan to buy BAP out of their transaction, and in which case their home's sold, They don't need to use that payment against them. That's kind of how it works. Yeah.
Exactly. That's how it works on the financing. It makes it easier for them because they're not paying 2 mortgages at the same time. They also don't have to find a home equity line of credit or some other facility to extract the equity that they've got in their departing residence to use that as a down payment. And then from a logistical perspective, just a human element, they're not living in a home that's listed for sale on the market. They've already moved into the home that BAP has paid cash to purchase. They're renting it, but they don't have to worry about scheduling their lives around open houses, around showings, all the work that needs to happen to get a home sold.
All the worst things about selling a home.
Absolutely. Especially when you got 3 young kids. I mean, imagine having to vacate the house anytime someone wanted to show the property. On the one hand, yeah, I want to sell my home. On the other hand, little Sally has got to get bathed and has to get clothed and everything, and it just becomes a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's just a real logistical nightmare. This solves a lot of their problems.
Right on. Well, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. You guys, buyer accepted it's a complex transaction, so we're not trying to, make it just sound like a very simple deal. For the right person, it works great. There's training required for both the agents that are involved as well as for the borrower, and there is some disclosures, and we'll attach those here to this video so you can check out more in detail how that program works. But, I think that we're in a market right now, Amit, where we have to find solutions to challenges. And it sounds like you've kind of figured out a little niche here that works. And what I love is going after agents that are like, yeah, well, I'm kind of more of a listing agent. You're like, perfect. You're exactly who I need to talk to.
Absolutely. They don't get a lot of solicitations. That's kind of like I'm going to shut you down with one sentence.
Exactly.
And they're not prepared for the jujitsu that goes with, hey, let me flip the script on you here and show you how this could help sell more homes for you, how it could help you get more listings, because they still have to sell that departing residence as well.
Yeah.
There's opportunities here, and people are used to being able to say no and being done with it. I'm not saying that this is a program for everybody, and it does require some understanding so that we can explain it to the people we're talking to. But once people get their arms wrapped around it, get it in their mind, it's really cool.
Very cool.
It's got a lot of legs.
Well, look, I mean, we talk a lot on this show about strategies. This is just one of them. And, I love that you've found an innovative way of doing that. Look, if you're a mortgage professional or real estate right now, it's a difficult market. We can talk about it's getting better. Affordability is getting better. Rates are coming down. But don't kid yourself. There is half as many transactions as 2023 as there was in 2022. And so it's just going to be a lot more work to do the same amount of transactions. And so you got to find these little strategies when they present themselves. So congrats to you. Okay, let's we're going to move on and we're going to talk about some video marketing. So look, I made a commitment some time ago, started doing market shares every Friday at 10 a.m. Please like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Press that button. Do us a favor, please, so I can get invited back.
But I think all of us need to be engaged in doing video. Social media, video. We need to get ourselves out there. Look, the reality is ever since COVID, and really before that, but COVID really accelerated it, where it's more difficult to just go out in the field, whatever that means today, and go meet real estate agents or financial planners. I mean, so many people work from home. So many people aren't, there are ways. You can go to open houses, that there's going to be a realtor there. But, some of the things that we've always relied on don't exist. And so we have to find other ways of getting our brand out there, getting our name out there. And so we're constantly, trying to help people with that strategy here. I try to help people as much as possible get on the air. They come on market shares. We talk about things, get people comfortable with the microphone and the camera and hearing what you sound like and seeing what you look like on camera. I will remind people you look and sound like this in real life. So it's not that scary. But we got to do something. And so everyone says, well, what do I talk about? What do I do? So you have come up with a creative series, if you will. Tell us about it. And and what was kind of your thought here, and how's it going? Because I've watched some of your stuff on social media, and I just think it's fun.
It's so much fun, and there's so much to unpack here. But as I said before, we learn as a species. We learn through story. And so if I want people to know about me and what I do, I have to show them. And we're a video world now. It's all video. There's no more reading.
Right.
I love to read, but no one's going to read my biography.
Right.
But I could show them like a 10-second video and like, oh, I know that guy, because they see what I do. They see how I do it, my quirks, my tics, my weird mannerisms, my whatever. They know a lot more about us by video. A long time ago, as we spoke in our first time together, I do clock hour classes for real estate brokers, and someone mentioned me in an offhand sort of way in a group of real estate brokers, and someone who had attended one of my self-defense classes goes, I know that guy, he closes loans and cracks bones. And that just stuck in my head, and I thought, wow, I would like this on my tombstone. This is not a bad thing. These are my two professional passions, to do mortgage financing and to teach self-defense. And so I thought, I'm already teaching self-defense. I'm already doing mortgage lending. Let me combine these two things. Let me teach self-defense to real estate brokers. Let me promote these classes to people. And so it just kind of evolved from that. And a friend of mine said, hey, you got to do more video. People need to see this. This is super cool. So I started doing the videos with the help of the team here at New American, and with Jason as well, who's been a really good demonstration partner. Not everybody's game for that. Not everybody wants to get knocked around. But there's a couple of things that I find to be very similar about buying your home and learning how to protect yourself. There's something about being at home. Like when I'm at home base. I'm safe. This is my four walls. I close the door. My family's inside. I'm protected. It's uplifting. It's empowering. And it's very similar when you teach someone, and I know you've got a martial arts background as well, when you teach someone a technique or two that they can use the moment they need it without having to think too much. Hopefully it never comes up, but if they do, they've got that feeling of empowerment, like, I know how to do this. I can walk to my car in the evening after work. I've got my hammer or my tactical pen, my flashlight, my hammer fist, my tactical pen. I know how to gouge an eye if I need to. I know how to strike the groin if I have to. Simple gross motor techniques, but they're very powerful.
Yeah.
And for people that don't have any of these skills, to provide them with that little bit of training, it gives them wings.
Yeah.
And the same thing when you help them realize that they can finance a home, and they can actually change their life and start to build wealth and start to create generational wealth for their kids. It gives them wings. It's empowering. And they're two really weird, sort of divergent things, but to put them together like that has just been a ton of fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, and, to be able to take two things that you're passionate about, Krav Maga and mortgages, and put them together. I mean, you teach classes, you teach, people how to buy homes, and I mean, it's perfect. And, so I just think that it's awesome. Thanks for sharing that story. I love watching them. So look for Amit's content on social media.
Yes,
Closing
please.
Loans, Cracking Bones. Also, if you're a real estate professional, sign up for one of his self-defense classes. And we're going to take the last couple minutes here, and I want to talk about self-defense just a little bit. After we did our last episode, we kind of stood around and talked a little bit about it. So give me a sense, because I watched some of your videos, and it's like you said, it's very like the most basic things that you can do in the moment. Because this whole I'm a black belt in Shito-ryu karate, but it would be like, I think at the end of like I love Karate Kid, but you're not going to sit there and do a kata, at the end of in the middle of a fight, that's just kind of silly to think that that's what you're going to do. Where what you teach people is really instinctual, right? Soft targets, hard hitting, really avoid if at all possible. But if you are confronted with the need for physical contact, that you do as little as possible to do as much damage as possible and get out of there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And one of the knocks on Krav Maga as a style of teaching or practitioners is, well, you guys don't do a lot of full contact sparring. How many times can I gouge you in the eye in sparring and you come back for another lesson?
Right.
Like, that's a very easy technique to learn. It doesn't take a lot of pressure to hurt people that way, but it takes some time to train someone to be willing to do that, to be up for the actual thing. And so we teach a lot of aggression. We teach people who are nice, decent, tax-paying, voting, they probably are really nice people, in their real life. And I teach them how to become very savage at the drop of a hat, and how to control and contain that, and how to use that to defend their own lives. And hopefully it never comes up. I mean, honestly, I don't want any of my students in a fight, but there's a lot of bad actors out there. And there are a lot of people who are looking, look, you're a big guy, man. Very few people, you got the short haircut, you look like a Marine. Very, very few people are gonna come up to this guy and say, this is an easy target. But there are people who are smaller, who are not as trained. They're inviting of bullying or being picked on. So we want to teach them stuff that they can use. Nobody trains their eyeballs or their throat or their groin to be stronger.
Right.
Like, I don't want to trade punches with you. You're a very, very large guy. But on the other hand, if I get you in the eye, it's going to hurt just like the same if you get me in the eye. So we teach things that are really easy to remember, easy to use. You don't have to spend hours in the gym. You don't have to be perfect. A lot of the jiu-jitsu stuff, you have to be really spot on with your technique or it's not going to work. And that's just years of training. I love it. I would do it. I recommend learning it. But if you've got 1 hour to learn something with me, I'm going to teach you something you'll remember and hopefully never have to use.
Well, and I love that. Last time we spoke about this, it seems to me like, and if I'm a real estate professional, I might be thinking, I don't want to learn how to gouge someone's eyes out, which, fair enough, it sounds like not like the funnest thing to do. With that being said, I would say 90% of what you teach people is how to be situationally aware, right? To not get into that sort of a situation. So maybe let's talk about that a little bit. If I'm a real estate professional and I know that I'm at an open house, or I'm going to be showing someone a property and I'm by myself, what kind of things are you teaching people to be aware of? What are they looking for? What are they looking out for? What are things and situations maybe they don't want to put themselves in that are going to protect them, in most circumstances?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the things that we talk about are positioning in the room. So I tell them, make sure that you are between your clients and the door. Right? You don't want to be trapped inside the room and have to get past somebody to get out to the exit. So you have to be aware of where your exits are. Now, if you're doing a showing of a property, I recommend don't go into the basement. There's very little to see in a basement. I would send the clients down there, let them explore, stay at the top of the stairs, and wait for them to come back. If you're doing an open house, for example, I would stay in the big room or in the foyer where it's easy for you to access the door. If there's a slider off the living room or the dining room, you can stay there as well. But there's no real need to go touring a property and see the bathrooms, for example. The bathrooms are the bathrooms. There's not much there that's going to give you any clues as to why someone bought or didn't buy the house. So I talk to people about how you position yourself. I talk to people about believing what you see. This is a problem that happens to everybody. We have what's known as a bias towards normalcy. And the brain tries to shut down any of our panic or flight or fight reflexes by saying, no, it's okay. This is totally normal. Don't freak out. When in reality, we need to believe what we see. If I see somebody coming my way and he's got a baseball bat, that guy does not play baseball. Right? I mean, but the mind wants to make it okay. The mind doesn't want me to freak out. The mind doesn't want me to go into panic mode. So the mind's going to come up with excuses and say, maybe he's got a gift for his nephew or niece, or maybe, he found it, or the mind's going to say something and it's going to limit my response and reaction time. And that's going to create a potential problem for me. So I've had referral partners tell me, I heard a client say something that was really off-putting, but I kind of pushed it off to the side because I really wanted to make the sale. I tell people, you got to believe what you hear and what you see, because people will telegraph that. And that takes some conditioning. Now, what you do with that information is very dependent. If I heard someone say something at an open house, I might say, you know what? I have to step outside to make a phone call. Unfortunately, reception in this part of the house is not great. So please, tour the home, take as much time as you need. I'll be outside on the phone, happy to answer any of your questions when you come out. But now you're out of the house. You've got options. You've got escape routes. You've got people who are coming to the open house. You've got people working in their yards, kids playing outside, postal carriers, Amazon delivery, whatever it is. You're not inside by yourself with someone that said something or did something that got your inner voice going, holy moly, did I just hear that right?
Well, that seems like a great strategy for any time that you feel uncomfortable in the situation. Get yourself outside, and that's a really easy way of doing it, right?
Absolutely.
I never really thought about that, but you're right. I mean, touring someone around and going into, bedrooms or bathrooms that have no other escape, and you're walking in first and they're walking in behind you. I mean, you're just inviting a situation, and we don't want to walk around thinking everyone's bad, but gosh, there's been enough, situations, especially with realtors, where bad things have happened, and why even ever get yourself into that situation, right?
Right, exactly. The best fight is one that you never get into. And I tell people that what I try to teach is the ADT solution. And you know the ADT sign, right? That big blue sign, people stick it in their yard. You know what ADT stands for? It's not a trick question. I don't know either. I want to say like
automated detection something.
Right. No, it could very well be. But what it really means in the criminal mind is rob the house next door.
Right.
Right. It just says, hey, this house is going to take more work.
Sure.
And people are looking for the easy target. If they want something from me specifically, they're going to find a way to get that. I've got another problem. But if they're just looking for an easy opportunity, if we present ourselves as something that's not an easy opportunity, people are going to think, maybe I should just go down the road and try a different open house.
Good point.
And that's the easiest way to learn. I'd rather have the ADT sign in my yard and no working alarm than have a working alarm and no sign telling people about it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the easiest way I can teach people how to present themselves. And we build off of that, and we come up with actual
So you don't wear like a sticker, but your behavior shows that you're not vulnerable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just by having those routines, just by having certain ways of carrying yourself, certain ways of expressing yourself, what you tell the clients along the way, hey, I've got to call and check into the office and let them know that we're going to be a little bit late on our return. Just that alone says, wow, someone knows where you are. Someone knows when you're due back.
Yep.
A lot of real estate brokers like to work independently. They don't think in those terms.
Yeah.
Whether you call the office or not relevant.
Right.
As long as the client thinks you are,
That's
or
right.
the person thinks you are, then they think that there's some other procedures in place as well.
Well, I know that there's probably a lot more of those little pieces of advice that you give to people. So you guys, seriously, if you need clock hour classes, which every realtor does
all the time,
consider taking a self-defense class as one of them. I think it's just going to empower you with ideas and strategies that you probably didn't otherwise think about. And if you want some tips and some demonstrations on how to attack some soft targets, it's closing loans and cracking bones. Well, Amit, congrats on you for taking your passions and the need to do video. So many loan officers can learn from this. Just look, we all have things that are important to us that we love talking about. And when you can merge those together, put out some content, not only does it help you get your brand out there, but people learn who you are. They learn your personality, You know
that old saying, when you love what you do, you're never really working.
That's right.
And if you find something, whether it's boats or cars or whatever, I'm sure there's a lot of other people that share that passion. And when you link up with those people, it makes doing business that much easier.
100%. Right on. Well, hey, thanks again for coming back, my friend.
Thank you so much.
You guys, this has been another great episode of Market Shares. And I want to thank Amit for coming back. And hopefully you got some ideas on this. I know that when we wrapped up last time and we stood outside talking a little bit about this self-defense stuff, I'm like, there's a few nuggets here. We should give people a little more taste of what this is all about, because I think that there's someone out there who probably heard an idea today that is going to make different choices next time they go to.
Can I throw you one really quick one?
One real quick
really
one.
Easy one. Go to like Goodwill. Get a pair of old men's boots, like work boots, construction boots. The bigger, the better. Take them to your open house. Put them outside the front door or inside the foyer. It gives the illusion that there's somebody else in the house, somebody large, somebody who works with their hands, who probably has strength. And it just gives somebody something to think about. Say, maybe this person's not inside alone.
That's a good idea. I like that. That's your last tip for the episode. Well, you guys, as always, thanks for watching Market Shares. We love putting together this content. We hope that you enjoy watching it and sharing it with other people in the mortgage and real estate industry. And with that, it's a wrap. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.